There is a moment, and it happens faster than you think, faster than a sentence completes, faster than a handshake ends, where every person you have ever met made a calculation about you, weak or dangerous, someone to test or someone to respect, and they made it before you finished your first sentence. Not after a long conversation, not after watching you handle a crisis. In the first 4 seconds of contact, the human brain runs a threat assessment, so fast and so precise that by the time you finished your first sentence, the verdict was already written, and most men spend the rest of the relationship trying to recover from a first impression they never even knew they were making. You have been assessed today, yesterday, in every meeting, every introduction, every moment you walked into a room and opened your mouth, or stayed silent, or reacted to something you should not have reacted to. And in each of those moments, without a single word being spoken about it, the person across from you answered a question about you that you did not know was being asked, weak or dangerous. Those are the only 2 categories that matter in the primal hierarchy of human social judgment. Every other impression, likable, intelligent, funny, successful, is secondary. The brain decides safety before it decides anything else. And the man who is perceived as dangerous, not threatening, dangerous, the kind of man who carries consequence, moves through the world differently than the man who is perceived as safe to dismiss. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this at a level that made him one of the most feared thinkers in European history, not because he invented cruelty, but because he refused to pretend that human beings operate the way they claim to operate, and he documented the real mechanics with a precision so uncomfortable that the Vatican banned his work for 2 centuries, while the most powerful rulers on the continent kept private copies beside their beds. He wrote one line that contains the entire psychology of what this video is about, and once you hear it, you will understand exactly why you have been losing evaluations you never knew were happening. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand because it belongs to everybody to see you, to few to come in touch with you. He was not writing about appearance, he was writing about signal, the specific, involuntary behavioral signals that your body, your voice, your reactions and your silences broadcast into every room you enter. Signals that other people's nervous systems read and classify in seconds, long before their conscious mind has formed a single opinion about you. What I am about to show you is the exact mechanics of that 4-second window, what triggers the weak verdict, what triggers the dangerous verdict, and precisely what you can do to ensure the assessment never goes against you again. And the question this video is going to answer precisely, specifically, and permanently is whether you are controlling what they read. Let us start with the biology, because this is where most people get it wrong. They think the judgment is social, they think it is cultural, they think it is based on status signals, what you wear, what you drive, what your title is. It is none of those things. It is neurological. The human brain has a structure called the amygdala, an ancient pre-rational threat detection system that processes incoming social information before your conscious mind has any access to it. It operates on a timeline of approximately 100 milliseconds. In that window, before you have heard a word, before you have processed a face, your amygdala has already classified the person in front of you. Threat or non-threat, dominant or submissive, someone who carries consequence or someone who does not. This is called pre-conscious social threat appraisal, the automatic, involuntary neural process by which your nervous system evaluates incoming human stimuli before your rational mind engages. You do not decide to run this program. It runs on you, and it runs on the person across from you. They are not judging you consciously. Their nervous system is judging you automatically. And here is the part that should permanently change how you enter every room. The signals their nervous system is reading are not your credentials, your history, or your intentions. It is reading your body, your voice, your reaction time, your stillness or lack of it, the gap between what they do to you and how quickly you respond. These signals are called dominance markers in primate behavioral research, physical and behavioral cues that the mammalian brain reads as indicators of social rank and threat potential. They exist in every culture on Earth. They operated in the courts of Renaissance Florence, exactly the same way they operate in your office, your relationship, and the room you walked into this morning. Machiavelli was not a scientist, but he was a precise observer of the same mechanics. What the neuroscientists mapped with equipment in the 20th century, he mapped with his eyes in the 15th. The first signal that triggers the weak verdict is the one nobody sees coming because it lives in something you have been told is a virtue: explanation. The moment you explain yourself without being asked, the moment you justify a decision, defend a position, or provide context that nobody requested, you broadcast something to the human nervous system that no amount of confidence in the content of your explanation can undo. You broadcast the need for approval. And the need for approval is the single most reliable indicator the primal brain uses to classify someone as non-threatening. When you explain yourself unprompted, you are signaling that the other person's opinion of your decision matters enough to address preemptively. You are treating their potential judgment as a court you are accountable to. You are, at the level of pure social signal, asking for a verdict, and asking for a verdict is the behavioral posture of a man who is not certain he will win it. This is called justification-seeking behavior in behavioral psychology. The automatic pattern of providing explanations, not because they are requested or operationally necessary, but because the internal anxiety about being misunderstood is too uncomfortable to sit with. It is exhausting to watch, and it is lethal to status. Here is the scenario. You make a decision at work. You changed the timeline on a project. Someone senior notices and asks about it casually. The weak version: yeah, I changed it because the original timeline was unrealistic, given the resources we had available, and I also factored in the holidays and I didn't want to put the team under unnecessary pressure. By the fourth clause of that sentence, the person who asked has already filed you. Not because the reasoning was wrong, because the volume of the reasoning communicated something the reasoning itself could not override. I am not confident this was the right call, and I need you to confirm it was. The dangerous version: the timeline needed to change. The new one is better. 3 words per sentence. 0 apology. 0 justification. The decision exists. It does not require defense. That response does not just communicate confidence in the decision. It communicates that your decisions do not require the other person's validation to stand. Machiavelli wrote, "One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." The man who performs certainty, even when certainty is not fully present, will always find people who accept the performance as reality. Because the human brain does not fact-check confidence, it accepts it as signal. Stop explaining. Start stating. Now here is where it gets darker. Because the second signal that destroys the dangerous assessment is not what you do in a confrontation. It is what you do in the 3 seconds before you respond to anything. Your reaction speed. Most men do not understand that the time between stimulus and response is one of the most powerful dominant signals. The human nervous system reads: a man who reacts immediately, who responds to a provocation, a question, or a challenge, the instant it lands, communicates something at the neurological level that cannot be undone with the content of the response. He communicates that the other person has access to his nervous system, and access is power. In social dominance research, this is called reactive latency, the measurable delay between an incoming social stimulus and the behavioral response it produces. In primate hierarchies, dominant animals have longer reactive latency. They do not flinch at every provocation, they respond at their own pace, which communicates that the incoming stimulus was not threatening enough to require urgent processing. Subordinate animals react immediately because for them, every incoming stimulus is a potential threat that requires instant attention. You are doing the subordinate behavior. Every time someone says something provocative and you respond immediately, every time someone challenges you and you counterpunch within a second, you are communicating to the primal brain of everyone watching. This man can be moved. This man is reactive. This man can be controlled by the inputs I send him. A reactive man is a predictable man, and a predictable man is a manageable man. Think about the most genuinely intimidating people you have encountered in your life. Not the loudest, not the most aggressive, the ones who made you slightly uncertain about how they would respond. The ones who paused before speaking, not because they were slow, but because the pause itself communicated that your stimulus was being processed at their pace, not yours. That pause is not a technique, it is the behavioral evidence of a man whose internal state is not governed by incoming stimuli. When someone says something designed to provoke you, an insult wrapped in a question, a dismissal disguised as a comment, the instinctive response is to address the content. The powerful response is to address nothing and take the pause. Look at them, let the room hold the silence for 2 full seconds longer than is comfortable. Then respond to the thing underneath what they said, not the thing they said. Respond to the intent, not the surface. This is called second-order response, addressing the psychological architecture of a communication rather than its content. It tells the room that you read people at a level they did not know they were being read at. And people who are being read at a level they did not know were visible become immediately and involuntarily cautious. Caution is respect without a press release. Now we go to the one that has been working on you in public, in rooms with witnesses. And the damage it does is permanent, because it happens in front of people whose updated model of you never gets corrected. Your posture, under pressure. Not physical posture specifically, though that matters. The posture of your entire presence when something goes wrong in public, when you make a mistake in front of people, when someone challenges you in a group, when something does not go the way you planned and other people are watching. Most men collapse. Not dramatically, subtly. The shoulders drop a fraction. The voice loses a quality. The eyes begin moving, not meeting, searching. The explanations start. The apologies multiply. The energy contracts inward, and every person in that room updates their file. In behavioral science, this is called status inconsistency, the phenomenon where a person's actual behavioral response to adversity reveals a lower dominance position than their normal presentation suggests. The brain is specifically calibrated to detect this inconsistency because in ancestral environments, a leader who collapsed under pressure was a direct threat to the group's survival. The collapse under pressure is remembered longer and more vividly than any other behavioral data point. You can project confidence for a year. One visible collapse in front of the right audience and the year disappears. The collapse becomes the reference data, everything before it gets reinterpreted through the lens of what the pressure revealed. It is the precise, documented, replicable mechanics of how the human brain processes status information. Here is what the dangerous man does. When something goes wrong publicly, when he makes a mistake, when a plan fails, when someone calls him out in a room full of people, he slows down. Not metaphorically, physically. His breathing slows, his movement slows, his voice drops to its lowest register and becomes quieter, not louder. His face does not perform composure, it simply maintains it, the specific stillness of a man who is not threatened by this moment, because he has already accepted that moments like this exist and decided in advance how he occupies them. And then he says the least number of words the situation requires. No over-explanation, no defensive elaboration, no performance of being fine. Just the minimum words, delivered at the pace of a man who has nowhere to be that is more important than this exact moment, and the room responds to that pace with the specific deference it reserves for men who make pressure look like weather. Marcus Aurelius, who dealt with military defeat, political betrayal, and the collapse of plans at a scale most men cannot imagine, wrote that the obstacle itself is not the problem. The problem is the performance around the obstacle. The man who can face adversity without performing the experience of facing adversity, who can absorb the hit without the body telegraphing the absorption, communicates something to every witness that cannot be manufactured. He has been here before, and he is still standing. Let me give you the one that most men will dispute when they hear it, and then immediately recognize in their own behavior once the mechanism is named. The dangerous verdict is destroyed every single time you perform being unbothered. Not every time you are unbothered, every time you perform it. There is a difference between a man who is genuinely indifferent to a provocation and a man who is performing indifference to signal that he is not bothered. The performance is visible. Authentic indifference looks like the stimulus barely registers. The response, if any, comes from mild curiosity rather than suppressed emotion. The body does not change. The man moves on because there is genuinely nothing there that warrants his continued engagement. Performed indifference looks like a stillness that is too deliberate, a return to another topic that arrives slightly too quickly after the provocation, a relaxation of the body that is visible as a decision rather than a natural state. The primal brain reads performed indifference and classifies it correctly. This man was moved. He just does not want you to know. And the moment the primal brain detects that you were affected and are concealing it, it does not file you as dangerous. It files you as someone who can be reached. which means you are worth probing further. This is called affective leakage, the involuntary behavioral signals that reveal emotional states being consciously suppressed. The harder you suppress, the more the leakage increases. The solution is not better performance. The solution is actual indifference, which can only be built through actual investment in something larger than the provocation. The lion does not perform disinterest in the sheep. It is simply interested in other things. When you perform disinterest, you confirm that the sheep got your attention. When you are genuinely disinterested, you confirm nothing, because there was nothing to confirm. Now let us go into the mechanism that operates entirely without your awareness. The one that has already written the verdict by the time you speak, your entry. The specific way you move through a threshold and occupy new space is one of the most information-dense behavioral broadcasts the human nervous system produces. Most men have never once thought deliberately about how they enter a room. They simply enter, but the room reads the entry. In social psychology, this is called spatial dominance behavior, the set of behavioral patterns associated with how an individual claims and occupies physical space, and what those patterns communicate to observers about their assessment of their own status. Does the individual enter as if the space already belongs to them, or as if they are requesting permission to be there? The permission-seeking entry, slightly reduced pace, shoulders absorbing subtle downward pressure, eyes scanning anxiously rather than assessing with ownership, a hesitation at the threshold, physical contraction, arms closer, movements tighter, the ownership entry, pace unchanged, shoulders at full width, eyes moving through the room with unhurried familiarity, no hesitation at the threshold, full physical expansion, movements taking exactly the space they require. Nobody in that room will consciously notice the difference, but every amygdala will have processed it before you reach your seat. Machiavelli observed that the men who commanded rooms without speaking were not always the most powerful men in the building. They were the men who moved through it as if power was their natural condition and every room was already set up for their arrival. The verdict was written by the walk. Start there. Here is the one that operates in intimate settings and produces a verdict harder to reverse than any other, because it is written by the person who has the most access to you. How you respond to being told no. Not in business, not in negotiation, in daily life. In the small moments where someone declines something you wanted, withdraws something you had, or refuses something you requested. The way a man receives no communicates how much power he believes the person delivering it has over him. A man who visibly adjusts, softens, or recalibrates in response to a refusal, whose emotional state is detectably affected by being declined, is broadcasting that the person who refused him holds a position he cannot afford to lose access to. That is the behavioral signature of a man whose emotional economy runs at a deficit. A man who receives no with the equanimity of someone who was genuinely offering rather than seeking broadcasts something categorically different. He broadcasts surplus, and surplus is the most powerful social signal in the human dominance hierarchy. In evolutionary psychology, this is called resource independence signaling. Behavioral evidence that an individual possesses sufficient internal resources that the withdrawal of any single resource does not affect their fundamental stability. The man who does not need your yes is more respected, more attractive, and more feared than the man who does. Not because need is shameful, because need is visible, and what is visible can be used. Think about the last time you wanted something from someone, and they declined, and something in you adjusted. You became slightly more accommodating, slightly more available than before the no arrived. You did not decide to do that. Your nervous system did it automatically, attempting to restore access to a resource it had catalogued as necessary. And the person who said no watched the adjustment happen and filed it. Let us address the one that gets misunderstood most in this niche, because there is a version of everything we have discussed that men adopt as strategy, and it produces the opposite of what they intend: forced coldness. The man who has consumed this kind of content and decided that the path to being perceived as dangerous is to be visibly distant, visibly unimpressed, and visibly difficult to reach. He delays texts deliberately. He maintains eye contact past the natural break point. He speaks in shorter sentences than the conversation requires. He withholds warmth as a tactic, and the room reads it immediately as what it is: a performance. In dark psychology, this is called strategic affect display, the deliberate manipulation of emotional expression to produce a calculated social impression. It is visible for the same reason that acted emotion in a film is visible when the actor is not skilled enough, the timing is wrong. Forcing the signals is like a person who has never been to a foreign country trying to fake the accent. You might fool someone for 30 seconds. The native speaker knows within one word. The people around you are native speakers of human behavior. They have been reading it since they were infants. They will know. The path to genuine danger is not better performance of the signals. It is becoming the man the signals naturally belong to. This is where it all converges. Because everything we have covered, the explanation behavior, the reactive latency, the pressure posture, the performed indifference, the entry, the response to no, the forced coldness, all of it is downstream of one thing. One root cause, the absence of an unconditional internal reference point. Every man who broadcasts weakness is broadcasting the same thing beneath every specific signal. My assessment of myself is conditional on what this environment returns to me. His confidence is a function of how the room is responding. His certainty is a function of whether his decisions are being validated. His composure is a function of whether the pressure is exceeding his current tolerance. Everything is conditional. Everything depends on the input. And the nervous system of every person he encounters reads the conditionality before it reads anything else. Because conditionality is at the neurological level, the definition of a man who can be moved, who can be managed, who can be broken, if the right pressure is applied from the right direction. The man who broadcasts danger has a different architecture. His assessment of himself is not a function of the room's response. It exists before the room. It continues after the room. It does not require the room's participation to maintain its structural integrity. Not because he is arrogant, because he has done the internal work to establish what he is worth, not by the measure of other people's reactions, but by the measure of his own standards, his own mission, his own judgment of what he has built and what he is building. That internal reference point is what produces every signal we have discussed, not as a decision, but as a natural consequence. The man who knows what he is does not explain himself, because there is nothing to explain. The man who knows what he is does not react immediately, because the incoming stimulus does not threaten anything real. The man who knows what he is does not collapse under pressure, because the pressure is not addressing anything he holds conditionally. The man who knows what he is does not perform indifference, because he is actually indifferent to the specific category of other people's attempts to destabilize what he has already settled. This is what Machiavelli was building toward in everything he wrote about the prince. Not a man who performs power, a man for whom power is the natural consequence of his internal architecture. He wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." He was writing about what a man's environment reflects about his internal standard. The man who surrounds himself with people who challenge and respect him does so because his internal standard demands it. The man who tolerates disrespect and environments that reduce him does so because his internal standard permits it. Your environment is your autobiography, and the verdict the room writes about you is the verdict your internal standard has already authorized. Here is the most uncomfortable truth in this entire video. The people who are currently treating you as weak are not wrong about the signals. They are reading accurately, not about who you are fundamentally, about what your behavior has been communicating. And behavior is not identity. Behavior is a practice. It is something you do repeatedly. The man who decides, not as a performance, not as a strategy, but as a genuine internal restructuring, to be the man whose signals read as dangerous in the specific sense that Machiavelli documented. A man of consequence, a man of settled identity, a man whose internal world does not require external confirmation to remain stable. That man does not just change how people assess him. He changes every dynamic in every room he enters for the rest of his life. Because the assessment changes the treatment changes the opportunity changes the outcome. It starts with the signal. The signal starts with the internal architecture. And the internal architecture starts with the decision made now, privately, without announcing it, to become the man the room cannot categorize as safe to dismiss. That decision is yours. It was always yours. Most men just never knew what it was they were deciding. Now you do. If this video reached something in you, if something here named a pattern you have been living and could not articulate, like this video, not as a favor, because it tells me the content found someone it was built for. Subscribe if you have not. This channel does not traffic in comfort. It traffics in the kind of precision that changes behavior because it is too accurate to argue with. There are levels below this, frameworks for reading people in real time, behavioral intelligence systems, dark influence mechanics, and psychological defense architectures that I cannot lay out in a public video without the algorithm deciding this content is not appropriate for general distribution. Those frameworks exist behind the join button below. Inside is a small circle of men who are not here for entertainment. They are here because they decided they are done operating at a level the public content can produce. They want the unfiltered mechanics, the exact breakdowns of human social behavior, dark psychology, and power dynamics that most people will spend their entire lives inside without ever understanding. This is not for everyone. If you watched this video and felt not just recognition but hunger, the specific hunger of someone who wants the full architecture, not just the introduction, the join button is below. The circle is small because it is meant to be. You stayed until the end. That kind of attention is rare and it is earned, not given. Guard it the same way this video told you to guard everything else that belongs to you. The verdict is already being written. The only question left is whether you are the one writing it. I will see you in the next one.